Well, they were going on to the Ethno. Now there was no, so the others, the visitors, went back into their museum. There was no missing the Ethno. I mean, you could see it from a distance. It wasn't, in a way, it wasn't that big, but it ended up looking so big. Uh, and it was on the grounds actually of the Museum of Fine Arts and Crafts, but it was at the far end of what had been a parking lot. But as I say, it looked really bigger than the museum itself in a way because it was so high. Uh, I need to describe it a little bit for you to understand the story really. So it was had a very steep roof, multicolored. If you've ever seen pictures of if you've ever seen pictures of the Hotel Dieu in Beaune, France, you might have some idea of the effect of it. Not not dazzling like the Hotel Dieu, but multi-chrome is what architects and artists would call it. A bunch of different colors. The roof. It had three dormers on each side. The whole building stood on eight stout columns of steel, but they weren't on the outside edge. They were partway in. And then between them, what you saw was sailcloth, white sailcloth, like sails on a boat, laced to the columns going around. There's more to it, but but anyway, it was quite impressive to see, and how it got built, how they managed to build that, mostly through the power of student work. That's a whole other story, which I think I can't get into right now. Well, certainly not right now, maybe a little later. Anyway, they went down. Now, some of the time Lance was walking, but mostly he was riding because they needed to make time. They didn't have all day, really, because it was a big day. Well, when they got down there, they turned to the left, and there was the end of the building. And what they were confronted with first was a sign that said, "Welcome to the first Ethno show," and then baskets. That was it. Well, they went past the sign, and immediately behind the sign was a curtain, sort of all these cardboard boxes, of refrigerator-sized boxes and television-sized boxes and shoe boxes, all out of cardboard, all hanging. Now, in far enough that if it would rain or something like that, well, that would take some explaining. And there were also a whole bunch of laundry baskets, like plastic baskets, Easter baskets, just about every kind of basket you can imagine that you could go and buy, say, in a Walmart. And it was all like one big curtain. Well, when they went through the curtain, see, everything hung. Nothing was on the floor. Everything was hanging from the roof. When they went through there, the world changed. And they were surrounded by unbelievable baskets. I mean, the fineness of the work, it just can't, well, you'd really have to see it. There were Japanese baskets and Chinese baskets and gula baskets. That's part of from the United States. There were baskets from the American West, from the Native Americans. Huge baskets, small baskets, all kinds, all hanging there. It was just a wonder to see, and they could wander in among them. Now, almost immediately, a woman came up to Violet and sort of, what do you call it, pigeonholed her, or I don't know what you call it, pulled her over because she wanted to talk to Violet, and she was not just impolite, but she was just kind of quick to meet Lance and say hi and all that. She wanted to talk to Violet, so she took Violet off, and they were talking. That left Lance and Elaine together to wander in this world of unbelievable craftsmanship. All woven baskets of every, willow, and a lot of it was bamboo, cane, oak split, backpack baskets, just every kind of basket you could imagine. What there wasn't was very much wicker work. Uh, but they wandered, and I to try to represent what they saw. This is not the venue to try to do that. I'm just telling you, it was really something to see. Uh, and at one point, Elaine said, which was maybe not obvious, but it was meant to be obvious by the show, by going through those cardboard boxes and plastic baskets that were stamped out and all that before you hit this wonder. I had an experience like that once, actually. Now that I'm telling the story, I can think of it in Innsbruck, Austria, where there was a Baroque church that had this dark kind of an entryway that you went through a curtain, and when you went through that curtain, you were dazzled by the white and gold of a Baroque interior church. Well, in a way, it was like that, but this was all intimate. You could touch these baskets. You could. They were all, well, I'll go on too much. I can't. But anyway, what Elaine was saying is that it was such a wonder that in many ways the most primitive of cultures had the most gorgeous basket work. And this was a pretty deep thought in a way, but make no mistake, Elaine was not a shallow person. She said, so much archaeologists, they make such a big deal out of pottery, which they should, because it lasts forever and it tells so much about the culture. But baskets don't. If they get wet, or time, 1,000 years in a basket for a basket to still be around, there are some, but she said, I have to wonder what it would tell modern man about humans in general if they could see and put their minds into a culture that could make baskets, even like the ones we're looking at. This is a deep thought. And she said, for example, the weaving in Peru, some of that weaving is 1,000, maybe 2,000 years old, around the mummies and stuff, and that weaving is so incredible. I have no answer. Well, she had burst into this kind of a response and didn't expect it to go further. But anyway, she felt she had to say that. And Lance was so much in another world that his head was spinning. But he also was hurting. He's walking now. He had to walk her out. He was walking around because he knew he had to do that. And so they spent a lot of time there. Elaine knew she was going to have to come back to look at this more. And meantime, Violet, after Tira, her friend, had got it off her mind what she wanted to say, Violet was free to herself to be astounded at the beauty of this. Although in her travels she'd seen some pretty amazing things, in her longer life, but she really just kind of only started to look at that. And she also knew she was going to have to come back. She was going to have to spend days probably in the Ethno, and she's looking, and then she hears this deep male voice behind her saying, well, what do you think, Mom? And she turned around and looked and said, Yoey.